The metallic crash echoed through the dining facility like a gunshot. 200 heads turned in unison. Hazel Grant stood frozen behind the serving counter, ladle still in hand, staring down at the scattered wreckage of a food tray on the concrete floor. Grilled chicken breast, mashed potatoes, and gravy spread across the gray surface in an ugly smear. "I said fill it up." Lieutenant Jasper Cole's voice carried across the mess hall, loud enough that conversations 3 tables away died mid-sentence. "You people don't know how to do your jobs?" Hazel didn't look up. 28 years old, brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing the faded blue uniform of a dining facility worker with a stained apron tied at her waist. She kept her eyes on the spilled food, the mess she'd have to clean, the disruption she'd have to fix. "Let me make you another plate, sir." Her voice was quiet, controlled. "Another plate?" Jasper leaned across the counter, his 6'2" frame towering over her. Fresh from officer candidate school, his uniform still had creases sharp enough to cut paper. "How about you learn to serve a proper portion the first time?" Hazel bent down, reaching for the fallen tray. But Jasper's hand shot across the counter, grabbing her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to stop her, to make a point. For exactly 2 seconds, something changed in the air. The way Hazel stood, the way her eyes tracked to his hand on her wrist, then to his face. Not fear, not confusion, assessment, calculation. Threat evaluation running behind calm brown eyes. Then she gently pulled her wrist free, the movement smooth as water flowing around a stone. "I apologize, sir. I'll prepare a new tray immediately." Jasper laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. He turned back toward 3 other officers sitting at a nearby table. Lieutenant Bellatrix Hayes smiled, sharp and knowing. Lieutenant Gaston Reed shook his head, looking away. Captain Hugo Bennett scrolled through his phone like nothing had happened. "This place hires people who can't even handle basic food service," Jasper said, loud enough for Hazel to hear. "Women in kitchens, sure, but at least know how to scoop mashed potatoes." Hazel said nothing. She knelt on the concrete, picking up pieces of food and placing them in the fallen tray. Methodical, efficient, silent. But Master Chief Oswald Barrett, a 55-year-old man with 32 years of service sitting at a corner table, watched the way she moved, the way her eyes swept the environment while she cleaned, the way her fingers held the dish towel like it was something else entirely, the way scarred tissue crossed the backs of her hands in patterns that didn't come from kitchen work. And he wondered why a dining facility server moved like she was clearing a room. The dining facility at Camp Pendleton served between 800 and 1,000 personnel daily. During peak hours, 200 to 250 people filled the space simultaneously. 6 serving stations lined the left wall: main course, sides, salad bar, beverages, desserts, and grab-and-go items. 50-plus tables spread across the open floor. Industrial kitchen operations hummed behind swinging doors. The dishwashing area occupied the back corner, visible through a wide service window. Hazel had worked here for 3 months. She arrived at 5:30 a.m. for the breakfast shift, left at 2 p.m. most days. She spoke to almost no one, did her job with precision that seemed excessive for someone scooping scrambled eggs, never complained, never caused problems. Until 4 weeks ago, when Jasper, Bellatrix, Gaston, and Hugo transferred to the base. The harassment started small: comments about civilian workers taking up space, jokes about women belonging in kitchens but apparently not being good at it, deliberate rudeness when she served their food. Nothing you could write up, nothing that crossed clear lines. But it escalated, week by week, day by day. Hazel finished cleaning the spill, carrying the dirty tray toward the dishwashing station. The lunch rush continued around her. Enlisted personnel lined up for food. NCOs gathered at their traditional tables. Officers claimed their section near the windows. The mixing of ranks happened here in ways it didn't elsewhere on base. Everyone ate, everyone needed fuel, and everyone saw everything. "Hazel, you okay?" Dahlia Pierce appeared at her elbow, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an accent that spoke of immigration and hard-won citizenship. As head cook, she'd been the only person to befriend Hazel, to treat her like more than just another warm body filling a shift. "I'm fine." Hazel rinsed the tray, stacked it with the others. "He had no right to grab you like that." "It's handled?" "Handled? Hazel, you should report." "I said it's handled. Not harsh, just final. the tone of someone who had learned when battles were worth fighting. Dahlia studied her for a long moment, then squeezed her shoulder. Lunch rush is almost over. Take your break after. Hazel nodded, returning to her station. Private Mason Blake, a 22-year-old who worked the afternoon kitchen shift, had just arrived. He greeted her with a respectful nod, genuine warmth in his young face. Mason had been nothing but kind since she'd started, helpful, curious in a way that felt earnest rather than intrusive. "Afternoon, Hazel." "Mason?" Jasper's voice cut across the dining facility again. "Hey, new guy, you got a crush on the civilian?" "That's sad, kid. Really sad." Mason's face reddened, but he didn't respond. "Smart. You didn't engage with officers who wanted conflict. You kept your head down and did your job." Hazel served the next person in line, an elderly veteran, probably 70, with Korea War patches on his jacket. He smiled at her, thanked her for the food. She nodded back. These moments were easier. The people who treated service work with dignity, who understood that every job mattered. 30 minutes later, Gaston Reed approached the beverage station, where Hazel was refilling ice. He carried his empty glass, moving with the casual entitlement of someone who'd never been told no. As he passed, his elbow accidentally knocked into her, sending her pitcher of water cascading toward her tray. But Hazel's hand moved, fast, impossibly fast. She caught the tray with her left hand, kept it level, didn't spill a single drop. One-handed grip, perfect balance, the kind of control that came from carrying tactical equipment through hostile territory. Gaston stopped, stared at her hand, at the way she'd moved. Mason, watching from the kitchen window, felt something cold settle in his stomach. That wasn't normal. That wasn't lucky reflexes. That was training. "Nice catch," Gaston said slowly. "You play sports or something?" "No, sir." "Huh." He filled his glass, walked away. But he glanced back twice. Before we continue with what happens next, if this story of hidden strength and silent warriors resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. These stories of respect, service, and unexpected revelations don't just entertain. They remind us that everyone around us carries battles we know nothing about. Every week, we bring you real stories of people whose true identities shock everyone who underestimated them. Don't miss what's coming next. The shift ended at 2 p.m. Hazel untied her apron, folded it with mechanical precision. Every corner aligned, every crease exact. Military precision applied to civilian cloth. Chief Norbert Walsh, the night shift supervisor, arrived early. He watched her fold the apron, something flickering in his weathered face. "You fold like you've been in the service." Hazel didn't look up. "My brother was Army." "Ah." Norbert accepted this, moving on to check the supply inventory. But the explanation sat wrong somehow. Too convenient. Too quick. In the kitchen, Dahlia was discussing the upcoming health inspection with two other cooks. Bellatrix and Gaston sat at a table near the back, talking about weapons qualification scheduled for next week. "The new M4 maintenance protocol is ridiculous," Gaston said, loud enough for the kitchen staff to hear. "They're changing the cleaning interval when the gas system doesn't even need... Actually, the gas impingement system does accumulate carbon faster than direct impingement." Hazel's voice came from the kitchen window, where she was wiping down the counter. "The shorter cleaning interval prevents cycling failures." Silence. Bellatrix and Gaston turned slowly. "Excuse me?" Bellatrix's voice could have frozen water. Hazel seemed to realize what she'd done. Her hand stilled on the counter. I read about it somewhere." "You read about M4 gas systems?" Gaston stood, walked toward the kitchen. "Where exactly does someone who serves mashed potatoes learn about weapon maintenance procedures?" "Internet, I guess. Internet." Gaston's laugh was ugly. "Right. Because Google teaches you about cycling rates and gas tube carbon buildup." He leaned against the service counter. "Tell me, what else do you know about the M4? Hazel said nothing, her eyes down, shoulders tensed. "Come on. You started this conversation. Finish it." Gaston's voice carried challenge, mockery, the tone of someone who had found a new toy to break. "Explain to me, a weapons officer, how the gas system works." The kitchen had gone quiet. Dahlia stood in the doorway, worry written across her face. Mason watched from the prep area, hands frozen on a cutting board. Hazel met Gaston's eyes for exactly 1 second. Then she spoke, her voice flat, mechanical, like reciting a manual she'd memorized years ago. The M4 uses a direct impingement gas system. Gas from the fired round travels through a tube to the bolt carrier group. The gas expands against the bolt carrier, forcing it backward to cycle the action. Carbon residue accumulates in the gas tube and bolt carrier after approximately 400 rounds. Failure to clean results in failure to extract, failure to eject, or failure to chamber the next round. She stopped. The silence stretched like pulled wire. Gaston's face had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something else. Confusion. Suspicion. How do you know the round count for carbon buildup? I told you. I read it. Where? I don't remember. You don't remember. Gaston stared at her. That's incredibly specific information for someone who doesn't remember the source. Bellatrix had joined him now, her sharp features calculating. Maybe she's got a boyfriend who's military, pillow talk and all that. Hazel turned away, returning to her cleaning. The conversation was over as far as she was concerned, but Gaston called after her. Hey, I'm not done. She didn't respond, just kept wiping the counter, methodical, focused, ignoring him with the kind of discipline that came from practice. Rude, Bellatrix said, loud enough for everyone to hear. These civilians have no respect. They left a few minutes later, but the incident stuck in Mason's mind like a splinter. He approached Hazel after they had gone. That was impressive. What you knew about the M4, it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. That was operator-level knowledge. I've been through basic and I couldn't tell you half of what you just said. Hazel hung up her apron, grabbed her keys from her locker. I should go. Hazel, wait. Mason stepped closer, lowering his voice. You seem different. Where are you from? What did you do before here? Her hand tightened on her keys. I'm just trying to make a living, Mason. That's all. She walked past him, through the kitchen, out of the back door. Mason watched her go, something nagging at his mind. Something wrong? No, not wrong. Hidden. Later that afternoon, Hazel walked across the parking lot toward her car. An old Honda Civic, 12 years old, paint faded from sun exposure, nothing remarkable, nothing that drew attention. But before she opened the door, she stopped, scanned the parking lot, full 360 sweep, eyes tracking vehicles, sightlines, potential threats. Muscle memory from a different life, operating on autopilot despite her conscious effort to suppress it. From a second-story window, Mason watched her, watched the way she moved. The tactical awareness that had no place in a dining facility worker's body language. He pulled out his phone, opened the base directory, searched for her name. Hazel Grant, civilian employee, hired 3 months ago. Basic background check cleared. No flags, no problems. But he had access to something else. His roommate worked in IT, had shown him how to use NIPRNet, the non-classified Internet Protocol Router Network. Just to look up basic personnel information. Nothing classified, nothing illegal. He typed her name into the search bar. No results. That was odd. Everyone had a digital footprint. Even civilians on base had records, files, basic information. He tried again, more specific. Social security number from the hiring paperwork he'd glimpsed once on Dahlia's desk. Access denied. Mason stared at the screen. Access denied? For a dining facility worker? That made no sense unless the file existed somewhere else. Somewhere he didn't have clearance to see. His roommate had CyberNet access, the secret Internet Protocol Router Network, classified information. He shouldn't ask. He knew he shouldn't. But something about Hazel Grant didn't add up, and Mason had learned in basic training that when things didn't add up, people died. The next morning started like any other. Hazel arrived at 5:30 a.m., changed into her uniform, tied her apron, took her position at the serving line. The breakfast rush was smaller than lunch. Mostly enlisted personnel, early birds, people with 0630 formations. Jasper didn't appear until 7:30, already angry about something. He grabbed a tray, moved through the line with barely controlled aggression. When he reached Hazel's station, he thrust the tray at her. Scrambled eggs, full portion. She served him without comment. But apparently, the portion wasn't enough. More. She added another scoop. More. She paused. Sir, that's the standard. Did I ask for the standard? His voice rose, sharp enough to cut through morning conversations. I asked for more. Hazel added another scoop. The eggs were piled so high they threatened to slide off the plate. There you go. That's proper service. Jasper took the tray, turned to leave, then stopped. Although I guess I should be grateful. Women can at least follow basic instructions when you're clear enough. Hazel's hand tightened on the serving spoon. For just a moment, her knuckles went white. Then she relaxed, set the spoon down, served the next person in line. Master Chief Oswald Barrett Best had witnessed the entire exchange from his usual table. He'd been watching Hazel for weeks now, the pieces not quite fitting together. 32 years in the Navy taught you to read people, to see beneath surfaces. And everything about Hazel Grant screamed mismatch. The precision, the discipline, the way she held herself, the scars on her hands, the tactical awareness, the weapons knowledge. After breakfast, he pulled her aside in the storage room, away from listening ears. You okay, Grant? Yes, Master Chief. Those officers giving you trouble? Nothing I can't handle. He studied her face, late 20s, strong features, eyes that had seen things. You served? She hesitated, just for a heartbeat. No, Master Chief, my brother did. Army. Right, your brother. He didn't believe her, but he also didn't press. You ever need anything, you come find me. Understood? Understood. As she left, Oswald made a mental note. He'd been around long enough to recognize a cover story, and he'd been around long enough to know that people who needed cover stories usually had good reasons. The week continued its downward spiral. The harassment became more brazen, more public. Hugo Bennett started joining in, making comments about civilian workers being dead weight on military installations. Bellatrix staged accidents, knocking into Hazel, spilling things, creating messes that Hazel had to clean. On Thursday, Gaston brought a training rifle to the dining facility. Unloaded, cleared, but real. He claimed it was for a demonstration later, but everyone knew why it was really there. Hey, Grant, he held up the M4. You know so much about these. Tell me, can you even hold one properly? Hazel continued wiping tables. I don't know anything about weapons, sir. You knew enough to correct me about gas systems. Come on, show me proper stance. I'd rather not. I'd rather not, Bellatrix mimicked, her voice high and mocking. It's not a request, it's an educational opportunity. Maybe you'll learn something. Gaston walked to where Hazel stood, held out the rifle. Take it. She didn't move. Every muscle in her body had gone still, her eyes fixed on the weapon with an intensity that made the air feel thick. Take it, Gaston repeated. Slowly Hazel reached out. Her hands closed around the rifle, and everything about her changed. Her stance shifted. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced. The weapon came up naturally, buttstock to shoulder, cheek to stock, eyes aligned with sights. Her breathing slowed. Her fingers stayed outside the trigger guard. Perfect. Textbook. Instinctive. Then she seemed to catch herself, forced her body to relax, held the rifle awkwardly, like someone who'd never touched one before, but it was too late. Gaston had seen those first 3 seconds. The muscle memory that didn't lie. Interesting, he said slowly. Real interesting. He took the rifle back, walked away. But the wheels were turning in his head now, the pieces connecting in ways that raised questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. That afternoon, Mason made his decision. His roommate, Petty Officer First Class Aidan Stone, worked in the base IT department, had access to classified networks. Mason found him after shift, bought him dinner at the enlisted club, waited until the 3rd beer before bringing it up. I need you to look someone up. Who? Dining facility worker, Hazel Grant. Aidan frowned. Why? Something's not right about her. NIPRNet came back, access denied on her file. Access denied? For a civilian? Aidan pulled out his phone, tapped through security protocols. What's her social? Mason rattled off the number he had memorized. Aidan entered it into SIPRNet, the classified network. Waited. Access denied. Security clearance insufficient. He tried again. Same result. Holy cow. Aidan looked up. Her file exists, but it's classified above my clearance level, and I've got secret clearance. Whatever she is, it's serious. What do you mean, whatever she is? I mean civilians don't have files classified at that level unless they're contractors doing sensitive work, or... He trailed off, understanding dawning. Or unless they're not actually civilians. Mason felt something cold settle in his chest. Can you find out more? Not without getting myself court-martialed. Aiden put his phone away. But I'll tell you this, that level of classification, that's special operations, that's intelligence. That's the kind of thing that gets people killed if it leaks. He leaned forward. Leave it alone, Mason. Whatever her story is, she's got it buried deep for a reason. But Mason couldn't leave it alone. Because if Hazel was hiding something that big, and if 4 officers were harassing her every day, then something very bad was going to happen. Soon. Speaking of precision and reliability in high-stress environments, let's talk about technology that actually performs when it matters. Military-grade tactical smartwatches with extended battery life, GPS tracking that works in remote locations, and health monitoring systems designed for extreme conditions. These aren't just gadgets, they're tools that can save lives. Whether you're in the field or just need dependable tech for outdoor adventures, investing in equipment built to military specifications means investing in technology that won't fail you when everything else does. The same standards that protect service members can protect you too. Friday brought breaking point closer. Jasper, emboldened by a week of escalation without consequence, pushed further. During lunch service, he deliberately cut in front of an elderly veteran in line. The old man, probably 75 with shaking hands and Korea War patches, started to protest. "Back of the line, old-timer," Jasper said. "Officers first." Hazel was serving at that station. She set down her ladle. "Sir, the line. Are you teaching me about protocol?" Jasper turned on her. "You? A civilian who couldn't hack it in real work?" "I just meant that everyone waits their turn." "Everyone?" He laughed. "Listen to her, talking about respect, about turns." He looked back at Bellatrix and Gaston, who had come up behind him. "Should we teach her about respect?" The elderly veteran spoke up, his voice reedy but firm. "Son, there's no need for this." "Stay out of it, old man." Master Chief Oswald stood from his table. His voice carried across the dining facility, hard as iron. "Lieutenant Cole, step back, now." Jasper turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Master Chief, this is an officer making a scene in a dining facility and disrespecting both a veteran and a worker doing her job. Step back, get your food, sit down." For a moment, Jasper looked like he might argue. Then he saw the other senior enlisted personnel standing, saw the officers at nearby tables looking uncomfortable, saw that he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Whatever. He grabbed a tray, moved through the line, but the hatred in his eyes when he looked at Hazel promised this wasn't over. After lunch, Hazel found Oswald in his office. "Thank you, Master Chief." "Don't thank me. I should have stepped in sooner." He gestured to a chair. "Sit." She sat, hands folded in her lap, calm, composed, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "I've been in the Navy 32 years, Oswald said. "I've seen a lot, and I've learned to trust my instincts about people." He leaned forward. "My instincts say you're not what you appear to be." Hazel said nothing. "I'm not asking you to tell me your story, but I am telling you that if those officers push much further, someone's going to get hurt. And I'd rather it not be you. I can handle myself." "I believe you can. That's what worries me." He held her gaze. "Because people who can truly handle themselves usually don't end up serving food in dining facilities, unless they're trying to disappear." The words hung in the air between them. Hazel stood slowly. "I should get back to work. Grant." He stopped her at the door. "Whatever you're running from, or hiding from, or healing from, you've got support here, remember that." She nodded once, then left. That evening, Mason approached Hazel in the parking lot. She was doing her usual 360 scan before getting in her car, the unconscious tactical awareness that marked her every movement. "Hazel, wait." She turned, keys in hand. "Mason, you startled me. Sorry, I just..." He struggled for words. "I need to know. Who are you, really?" Her face went blank. "What are you talking about? Your file is classified. Not just protected, classified above secret clearance level." He stepped closer. "Nobody gets that kind of security lockdown unless they did something that matters, something big. You shouldn't have been looking into my background. Maybe not, but I did. And now I can't stop thinking about it." He met her eyes. "Those officers, they're harassing someone they think is weak. But you're not weak, are you? You're something else, something they don't understand." Hazel's hand tightened on her keys. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, Drop it, Mason, for your own sake. Drop it. But I said drop it. Her voice went hard, carrying command authority that made him step back automatically. Then she seemed to catch herself, softened. Please, just let it go. She got in her car, drove away. Mason watched her taillights disappear, certainty settling in his gut. Whatever Hazel Grant was hiding, it was big enough to bury under layers of classification, and 4 officers were poking at something they couldn't begin to comprehend. The weekend passed. Monday morning arrived with tension thick enough to taste. Word had spread through the base grapevine about Friday's incident, about Jasper being called out by a master chief in front of the entire dining facility, about the disrespect shown to a Korea War veteran. Jasper arrived at breakfast looking for a fight. His jaw was set, his movements aggressive. Behind him, Bellatrix and Gaston wore matching expressions of anticipation. Hugo trailed them, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to break ranks. They moved through the sus breakfast line in silence, but when Jasper reached Hazel's station, he stopped, stared at her. The dining facility had maybe 80 people present. Morning shift, quiet conversations, the smell of coffee and bacon. "I've been thinking about you all weekend," Jasper said, his voice carrying. "About how you talk to officers, about how you act like you're something special." Hazel served scrambled eggs onto his plate. "I don't think I'm special, sir." "No? Then why did you embarrass me Friday? Why did you make me look bad in front of everyone?" "I didn't do anything, sir. I was just what? Just being disrespectful? Just acting like civilian scum can tell military officers what to do?" The dining facility had gone quiet now. Conversations stopping, heads turning. Hazel set down the serving spoon. "Sir, I'd prefer not to do this here." "I don't care what you prefer." Jasper's voice rose. "I'm sick of you. Sick of your attitude. Sick of your presence in this facility." "Jasper," Hugo's voice, warning. "This isn't the place." "No, it's exactly the place." Jasper turned back to Hazel. "You want to know what I think? I think you're nothing. I think you couldn't hack it in any real job, so you ended up here, serving food to people who actually matter." Hazel's face remained calm, but something flickered in her eyes. Something cold and calculating that made the temperature drop. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "Your job," he laughed. "Your job is to shut up and serve food. That's it. You're not here to have opinions. You're not here to correct officers. You're here to be invisible." He grabbed his tray, walked to his table, but the damage was done. The line had been crossed, and everyone in the dining facility knew it. Dahlia appeared at Hazel's side. "You okay?" "Fine. That was completely out of line. You should report him." "To who? He's an officer? I'm nobody." "You're not nobody." Dahlia's hand found her shoulder. "You're worth 10 of him." Hazel managed a small smile. "Thanks, Dahlia." But as she returned to serving breakfast, Oswald watched from his table, watched the way Hazel moved. The discipline it took to absorb that much abuse and not react. That level of restraint didn't come from nowhere. It came from training, from experience, from understanding that some battles weren't worth fighting, which meant she knew about battles, real ones. The thought settled in his mind with the weight of certainty. He'd served in Vietnam, in the first Gulf War, in Afghanistan. He knew warriors when he saw them. And Hazel Grant, for all her civilian clothing and quiet demeanor, moved like someone who had seen combat. The question was why she was hiding it, and what would happen when that secret came out. If you're invested in finding out who Hazel really is, show your support by liking this video and sharing it with someone who appreciates stories about underestimated warriors. The next part reveals something that will make everything you've seen so far make perfect sense. Stay with us. Tuesday brought escalation in the form of rumor. Bellatrix started it during lunch, speaking loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I did some asking around, heard she might have been in the military but got kicked out. Dishonorable discharge or something." The rumor spread like wildfire. By dinner, half the base had heard some version of it. Hazel Grant, the dining facility worker, was supposedly a washout, a failure, someone who couldn't hack military service and now served food to real warriors. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter when reputation was at stake. Mason heard the rumor in the enlisted barracks. Immediately, he knew it was false. Whatever Hazel was hiding, it wasn't failure. You didn't get classified files for failing out of basic training. You got them for succeeding at something so sensitive it couldn't be discussed. But he couldn't defend her without revealing what he'd discovered, couldn't fight the rumor without admitting he'd been digging into her background. So, The lie spread, and Hazel, knowing about it, said nothing, just kept serving food, kept cleaning tables, kept disappearing into the background like she'd never existed. Wednesday, Gaston brought his challenge. He'd been thinking about that moment with the M4 all week, about how naturally Hazel had handled the weapon before catching herself, about the muscle memory that couldn't be faked. He showed up at lunch with an unloaded M4, cleared and safe, supposedly for a training demonstration later, but everyone knew the real reason. "Grant," he called across the dining facility, "come here." Hazel was wiping down tables. She looked up, wariness in her eyes. "Sir, you corrected me about gas systems last week, told me all about carbon buildup and cycling rates." He held up the rifle. "Prove, it wasn't just Google. Show me you actually know what you're talking about." "I'd rather not." "Too bad. I'm ordering you as an officer to demonstrate basic weapon handling." "Sir, I'm not military. You can't order me to—" "Fine, I'm asking. As someone who supposedly knows about M4 maintenance, show me you can actually handle one." The dining facility had gone silent. 150 people watched, waited. Hazel set down her cleaning rag, walked slowly to where Gaston stood. Her eyes tracked the weapon, assessing, calculating, every step measured, every movement controlled. She took the rifle. For exactly 3 seconds, her body remembered. Stance perfect, grip textbook, safety check automatic. The weapon becoming an extension of her arms, natural as breathing. Then she started to field strip it, muscle memory taking over. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Press the pin, remove the upper receiver, extract the bolt carrier group. Each movement smooth, fast, economical. Gaston had expected fumbling, hesitation, maybe basic knowledge at best. Instead, he watched her strip the weapon blindfolded, because her eyes were closed, hands working by touch alone, in 23 seconds flat. The dining facility had gone absolutely silent. Hazel finished, opened her eyes, looked down at the disassembled weapon like she couldn't quite believe what she'd done. Her face went pale. She'd revealed too much, way too much. "Where?" Gaston's voice came out hoarse. "Where did you learn that?" "My brother. He taught me. I should—" She turned to walk away. "That's operator-level speed." Gaston stepped in front of her. "I've been in weapons specialty for 6 years, and I can't strip an M4 that fast. Your brother didn't teach you that. Please let me go back to work. Not until you tell me who you really are. I'm nobody. Just let me—" "You are not nobody," his voice carried across the room. "Nobody doesn't handle weapons like that. Nobody doesn't have classified files. Nobody doesn't—" "Enough." Hazel's voice cut through his words like a blade. For just a moment, command authority resonated in her tone. Officer to subordinate, superior to inferior. Then she caught herself, dropped her eyes. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I'll go." She walked away, leaving the assembled weapon on the table. Gaston stared after her, pieces clicking into place in his head. The weapons knowledge, the tactical awareness, the classified files, the reflexes. "Holy cow," he whispered. "Who is she?" Mason, watching from the kitchen window, had his answer. He just didn't know what to do with it. That afternoon, Commander Ambrose Tucker visited the base. 52 years old, still lean and hard despite his desk job now. He'd come to inspect training facilities, review readiness reports, standard visit from someone high in the Special Operations Command structure. Hazel was in the kitchen when he entered the dining facility. She glanced out, saw his uniform, saw his face, and froze. She knew him. Oh God, she knew him. Had served under him, had taken orders from him, had bled alongside men he'd sent into combat. She turned away fast, disappearing deeper into the kitchen. Dahlia noticed. "Hazel, you okay?" "I need a minute," her voice shook. "Just a minute." She retreated to the storage room, pressed her back against the wall, closed her eyes, tried to breathe, tried to stay calm, tried not to remember. Tucker's voice drifted from the dining facility, talking to Oswald, talking about base readiness, talking about training requirements. Would he recognize her? Would he remember? How many operators had he commanded over the years? Dozens? Hundreds, maybe? She'd been one of the best, but that was 2 years ago. Another life, another person. She stayed in the storage room until Dahlia came to find her. "He's gone. Whoever scared you, he's gone." "I wasn't scared." Dahlia's look said she didn't believe that for a second, but she didn't push. "Come on, dinner shift's starting." Hazel returned to work, but the close call rattled her. made her realize how fragile her anonymity really was. One person from her past, one chance encounter, one moment of recognition, and everything she'd built would collapse. That evening, Hugo approached Oswald in his office. "I want that woman fired." Oswald looked up from paperwork. "Excuse me? Hazel Grant. She's causing problems, creating tension, making my officers uncomfortable. Your officers are harassing her." "That's not how I see it." Hugo crossed his arms. "She's unsettling. Something about her doesn't fit. And frankly, she's not worth the headache. She's my best worker. Shows up on time, does her job perfectly, never complains. What exactly is the problem?" "The problem is she makes people uncomfortable." Or, Oswald said quietly, "your people are uncomfortable because they sense they're out of their depth." Hugo's face hardened. "What does that mean?" "It means I've been watching. I've seen how she moves, how she thinks, how she handles herself." He leaned back in his chair. "That woman has training, real training, and your officers are picking a fight with someone they don't understand. That's ridiculous. She's a dining facility worker." "Is she?" Oswald held his gaze. "Have you actually looked into her background? Really looked?" Her background check came back clean. Clean isn't the same as complete. He pulled out a file, slid it across the desk. "I did some digging, called in favors. Her social security number traces back to a file that's classified above my clearance level, and I've got top secret clearance." Hugo stared at the file. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that woman is hiding something big. And if your officers keep pushing, they're going to regret it." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a warning, from someone who's been around long enough to recognize danger when he sees it." Oswald pulled the file back. "Leave her alone, Captain. Tell your people to back off, before someone gets hurt." Hugo left without another word, but he didn't deliver the warning, because pride wouldn't let him admit that a dining facility worker might be more than she appeared. Friday arrived with tension coiled tight as a spring. Jasper had been drinking before dinner shift. Not enough to be obviously drunk, but enough to lower inhibitions, enough to make bad decisions seem reasonable. He showed up at 6 p.m. when the dining facility was packed. Over 200 people, peak dinner rush. Every table full, the sound of conversation and silverware creating background noise that felt almost normal. Jasper moved through the line with barely contained rage. When he reached Hazel's station, he stopped, just stared at her. "Something wrong, sir?" Her voice was steady, professional. "Everything about you is wrong." He wasn't yelling, not yet, but his voice carried. "You're wrong for this place, wrong for this base, wrong for this world. I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job," he spat the words. "Let me tell you what your job really is. Your job is to be grateful. Grateful that real warriors let you exist in their space. Grateful that we tolerate your presence." Hazel's jaw tightened, but she said nothing, just stood there, absorbing the abuse like she'd been doing for weeks. Behind Jasper, Bellatrix filmed on her phone. Gaston watched with guilty fascination. Hugo stood at the back, too far to intervene but close enough to witness. "You know what I think?" Jasper continued. "I think you're a coward, someone who wanted to serve but couldn't hack it. So now you serve food instead, living off the scraps of better people." Something flickered in Hazel's eyes, something dangerous. "That's enough!" Oswald's voice cut through the tension. He stood from his table, 32 years of authority in his bearing. "Lieutenant Cole, step back, now. Stay out of this, Master Chief. I won't tell you again." Jasper turned back to Hazel, leaned across the counter. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Hazel kept her eyes down, every muscle controlled, every breath measured. "I said look at me." She raised her eyes slowly, met his gaze, and in that moment, Jasper saw something that made him falter. Something cold, something lethal, something that promised violence in ways he couldn't begin to understand. Then it was gone, replaced by the calm, quiet demeanor of a dining facility worker. But he'd seen it, that flash of whatever lived beneath her surface, and it terrified him, which made him angry. He grabbed her arm, hard. "You need to learn respect." Hazel's voice came out quiet, steel wrapped in silk. "Let go of my arm." "Or what?" "Sir, please, let go." The dining facility had gone completely silent. 200 people frozen, watching, waiting. Jasper tightened his grip, yanked her forward. "I asked you a question." "Or what?" Then several things happened at once. Mason moved from the kitchen, shouting for him to stop. Oswald started forward, his face dark with anger. Dahlia reached for the phone to call MPs. But Jasper, drunk and furious and cornered by his own bad decisions, pulled harder, twisted Hazel's arm, tried to drag her across the counter. The fabric of her uniform couldn't take the stress. The shoulder seam ripped, tore away completely, exposing her upper arm and shoulder, exposing the tattoo. Navy SEAL trident, Gold Eagle clutching a pistol, an anchor, and a trident, the symbol of naval special warfare, impossible to fake, impossible to earn without going through the hardest military training on Earth. And below it, running down her arm in a perfect vertical line, 12 small stars, each one representing something that couldn't be discussed, something that was classified, something that mattered. The silence in the dining facility became absolute. Jasper's hand dropped from her arm. His face went white. What is... Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. For 3 endless seconds, 200 people stared at the proof that everything they had believed about Hazel Grant was wrong. Then, Master Chief Oswald Barrett stood. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. He snapped to position of attention. His right hand came up in a salute, held steady and precise. His voice carried across the silent room, clear and strong and absolutely certain. "Lieutenant Commander," the words detonated like a grenade. All around the dining facility, enlisted personnel began standing. First 3, then 5, then an entire section, hands raising, salutes forming, silent acknowledgement of rank, of service, of sacrifice. Officers stood more slowly, confusion and shock written on their faces. But they stood. Because Master Chiefs didn't salute civilians, Master Chiefs didn't show that level of respect to dining facility workers, which meant Hazel Grant wasn't a dining facility worker at all. Jasper stumbled backward. His hand shook. His voice cracked. I grabbed a... Hazel looked down at her torn uniform, at the tattoo exposed for everyone to see, at the secret that wasn't secret anymore. For a moment, she just stood there. Then gently, she picked up the torn piece of fabric, held it against her shoulder, covering the tattoo that had revealed everything. She didn't speak, didn't explain, didn't defend herself. She simply turned and walked toward the kitchen. Every eye in the dining facility tracked her movement. Every person there understood that they'd witnessed something significant, something that would change everything. The door swung closed behind her, and in the silence she left behind, Jasper sat down heavily, his face in his hands, beginning to understand what he'd done, beginning to understand who he'd been harassing for the past 4 weeks, beginning to understand how much trouble he was in, because you couldn't assault a superior officer. You couldn't harass someone who had earned that trident. You couldn't disrespect someone who'd done things that were literally too classified to discuss. And Jasper Cole had just done all 3 in front of 200 witnesses. The consequences were about to be severe. The kitchen felt smaller than usual. Hazel sat on an overturned milk crate in the storage room, head in her hands, the torn piece of uniform clutched against her shoulder. The tattoo still showed at the edges, the 12 stars, the evidence of a life she'd tried to leave behind. Dahlia stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. All this time, you were... and I didn't want anyone to know. Hazel's voice was hollow. Why? Why hide something like that? Because I needed to be normal, just for a while. I needed to remember what it felt like to be human instead of... She trailed off, unable to finish. Outside, the dining facility remained frozen in shock. Jasper sat at his table, hands shaking so badly he couldn't hold his water glass. Bellatrix had dropped her phone, the screen cracked against the floor. Gaston stared at nothing, his face pale. Hugo stood near the exit, calculating damage control, knowing his career had just taken a mortal wound. Mason pushed through the crowd toward the kitchen. Oswald intercepted him. Give her space, son. But she might need... What she needs is time. What she doesn't need is more people staring at her like she's a zoo animal. Oswald's voice was firm, but not unkind. Let her breathe. The dining facility doors opened. Commander Ambrose Tucker entered, still in his dress uniform from earlier meetings. He'd been halfway to the officers' club when his phone exploded with messages. SEAL operator, dining facility, identity exposed, get here now. He scanned the room, took in the standing personnel, the salutes still being held, the shell-shocked faces. His eyes found the kitchen door. As you were, he said quietly. The authority in his voice cut through shock like a knife. People sat, lowered their hands, But nobody resumed eating. Nobody moved. Tucker walked to the kitchen, pushed through the swinging door, found Hazel in the storage room, with Dahlia hovering protectively nearby. "Ghost," his voice was gentle. "It's time to stop hiding." Hazel looked up. Her eyes were dry, but haunted. "I'm not Ghost anymore, sir. You'll always be Ghost, just like I'll always be Hammer. Just like every operator who ever earned that trident will always carry it." He crouched down to her eye level. "What happened out there? They pushed too hard. I tried to—" She gestured helplessly at her torn uniform. "This wasn't supposed to happen. Maybe it needed to." He studied her face, seeing the exhaustion, the pain, the weight of secrets carried too long. "You can't heal in hiding. Trust me. I tried. What do I do now?" "You face it, like you faced everything else." He stood, offered his hand. "Come on, let's get this over with." Hazel took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. Together they walked out of the storage room, through the kitchen, toward the dining facility. The conversations died the moment they appeared. 200 faces turned toward them. Hazel kept her eyes forward, the torn fabric still pressed against her shoulder. Tucker's hand rested lightly on her back. Support, not control. He guided her to the center of the room, positioned her where everyone could see. Then he turned to address the crowd. "For those who don't know me, I'm Commander Ambrose Tucker, Naval Special Warfare Development Group." His voice carried authority, command, the weight of 30 years' service. "And for those who don't know her, this woman is Lieutenant Commander Hazel Grant, call sign Ghost, DevGru operator, 12 classified missions across 3 combat zones." The silence was absolute. "Silver Star for valor under fire, Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart twice, Navy Cross for actions that remain classified to this day." He paused, letting the words sink in. "She's one of 9 women in history to complete SEAL training. One of perhaps 36 people alive who've done what she's done." Jasper made a sound, something between a whimper and a groan, his career flashing before his eyes. Tucker continued. "She came here to heal, to recover from losses that most of you can't imagine, to find some kind of peace after giving everything to her country." His eyes swept the room, hard and unforgiving. And instead, she faced harassment, disrespect, assault. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "I need to see Lieutenant Jasper Cole, Lieutenant Bellatrix Hayes, Lieutenant Gaston Reed, and Captain Hugo Bennett outside. Now!" Tucker's tone left no room for argument. "The rest of you are dismissed, and if I hear that anyone discusses what happened here tonight outside of official channels, there will be consequences. Are we clear?" A chorus of "Yes, sir," echoed through the dining facility. People stood, filed out quietly. But as they passed Hazel, something happened. The elderly Korea War veteran stopped, came to attention, saluted. "Welcome home, warrior." His voice cracked with emotion. "Thank you for your service." Hazel's eyes filled with tears. She returned the salute, unable to speak. Then more veterans stopped, more salutes, more quiet words of respect and gratitude. The dining facility emptied slowly, each person taking a moment to acknowledge what Hazel had sacrificed, what she'd given. Mason approached last. "I'm sorry I didn't figure it out sooner. Sorry I couldn't stop them. You tried to protect people. That's what matters." Hazel's voice was steady again. "Keep that instinct. The special warfare community needs people like you." His eyes widened. "You think I could? I think if you want it badly enough, and if you're willing to pay the price, you can do anything." She managed a small smile. "But make sure it's worth the cost." He nodded, backed away, left her standing in the nearly empty dining facility with Tucker, Oswald, Dahlia, and the 4 officers who looked like they were facing a firing squad. Tucker pointed toward the door. "Outside, now!" They filed out into the parking lot. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of ocean from Camp Pendleton's coastal position. Jasper could barely walk straight. Bellatrix kept her eyes down. Gaston's hands were shoved deep in his pockets. Hugo tried to maintain some dignity, but fear leaked through his composed exterior. "Do you understand what you've done?" Tucker's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. "Do you have any comprehension of the severity of your actions?" "Sir, we didn't know," Hugo started. "You didn't know because you didn't bother to find out. You saw someone you perceived as weak, and you attacked. You harassed. You assaulted a superior officer. She wasn't in uniform," Jasper said desperately. "She was civilian. We thought—" You thought wrong. Rank doesn't disappear when you take off the uniform. Service doesn't end when you walk away from active duty. Respect is owed to those who've earned it, regardless of what they're wearing. Tucker stepped closer. Lieutenant Commander Grant has more combat experience than all four of you combined. She's led missions you'll never have clearance to know about. She's made decisions that saved American lives while risking her own. Bellatrix's voice came out small. We didn't mean what? Didn't mean to grab her? Didn't mean to mock her? Didn't mean to spread false rumors about dishonorable discharge? Tucker's eyes were ice. Every action has consequences. You're about to learn that lesson the hard way. We're approaching the moment that changes everything. If you want to see how this unfolds and support more content like this, please leave a comment below telling us what you think is about to happen. Your engagement helps us bring you these powerful stories every week. Keep watching. Inside the dining facility, Oswald found Hazel sitting at an empty table, Dahlia beside her. You okay, Commander? Don't call me that. It's your rank. You earned it. I gave it up. No. His voice was firm. You stepped away to heal. That's different. The rank, the training, the experience, it's still yours. It always will be. Hazel looked at him, really looked at him for the first time, saw the Vietnam ribbons, the decades of service, the understanding that came from walking similar paths. How did you know? The way you move, the way you think, the scars on your hands. He sat across from her. I've been around warriors my whole life. I know one when I see one, regardless of the uniform. I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. I just wanted to disappear for a while. I understand. After Vietnam, I worked construction for 3 years. Needed to remember I was human before I could be a sailor again. He smiled sadly. But hiding doesn't heal. It just delays the reckoning. Dahlia spoke up, her accent thick with emotion. All those times I complained about my problems, about immigration paperwork and my daughter's school troubles, and you never said anything about what you'd been through. Your problems matter, Dahlia. Everyone's struggles are real to them. That's what I learned here. That ordinary life has value. That serving food is as important as, she gestured vaguely, as the other things. But it's not the same. What you did, what you sacrificed, is over. I'm not that person anymore. Oswald shook his head. You're exactly that person. You're just trying to figure out how to be that person in peace instead of war. He leaned forward. Ghost was a warrior. Hazel Grant is a warrior, choosing to serve differently. But they're both you, both valid, both valuable. Tucker returned before Hazel could respond. MPs are on their way. Colonel Priscilla Ward wants to see you tomorrow at 0900 hours. He paused. She's not happy she had a DevGru operator on her base without being informed. It was need to know, sir. Part of my therapy protocol. I'm aware, Dr. Chase filled me in. Tucker pulled up a chair. How are you handling this? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me is relieved, part of me is terrified. I worked so hard to build this normal life, and now it's... She gestured helplessly. Not gone, changed. There's a difference. He studied her. You know what happens next, right? Article 15 hearing, formal statements, investigation. And after that? He waited until she met his eyes. After the dust settles, you'll still be here, still be you, still have choices to make about your future. I don't want to go back to active duty. Nobody's forcing you, but there are other options. Training, consulting, teaching. His expression softened. We need people who understand trauma, who can help others transition from war to peace. You've walked that path. You could guide others through it. Sergeant Clover Manning arrived with 2 other MPs. Young, professional, her eyes widening when she recognized Hazel from the dining facility. Lieutenant Commander, we need to take statements from everyone involved. Of course. The next 2 hours blurred together. Statements, questions, formal documentation of everything that had happened over the past 4 weeks. Hazel recounted each incident with military precision, her voice steady, her facts unimpeachable. 200 witnesses meant there was no disputing the truth. Jasper, Bellatrix, Gaston, and Hugo gave their statements separately, each one knowing that their military careers were effectively over. Article 15 proceedings for harassment and assault of a superior officer. Conduct unbecoming. Abuse of position. The charges stacked up like cordwood. By 2200 hours, everyone had given their statements. Clover approached Hazel as she was preparing to leave. Ma'am, I just wanted to say, you're an inspiration. I've been thinking about trying for special warfare training. Seeing you, knowing what you have accomplished, she trailed off. It makes it seem possible. Hazel studied the young woman, saw the determination, the hunger, the willingness to sacrifice. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and if you succeed, it will cost you pieces of yourself you didn't know you could lose. But it's worth it? Hazel was quiet for a long moment. Ask me that question after you've made it through, after you've served, after you've come home. She met Clover's eyes. Then we'll see if you still think it was worth the price. Clover nodded slowly. Fair enough, ma'am. When you've served your country, you deserve financial protection that understands your unique needs. Specialized insurance programs for veterans and military families offer coverage that standard policies don't, from deployment-related benefits to coverage for service-connected conditions. Investment opportunities designed specifically for those who've served provide tax advantages and long-term security. Financial planning isn't just about money, it's about ensuring that your sacrifice translates into stability for your family. Talk to advisors who specialize in military benefits and veteran-specific financial products. Your service earned you these advantages. Make sure you're using them. Saturday morning arrived too soon. Hazel barely slept, her apartment feeling too quiet, too empty, too civilian after the forced revelation. She showed up at Colonel Priscilla Ward's office at 08:45, 15 minutes early, wearing civilian clothes but carrying herself with military bearing she could no longer hide. Colonel Ward was 53, sharp-eyed, with intelligence background written in every calculated movement. She gestured Hazel to a chair. Lieutenant Commander Grant, or do you prefer just Hazel? Whatever you're comfortable with, ma'am. I'm comfortable with the truth. Ward leaned back. I run this base. I'm responsible for every person on it, military and civilian. So, imagine my surprise when I discover that one of my civilian employees is actually a highly decorated SEAL operator whose file is classified above my clearance level. Ma'am, the therapy protocol required. I'm aware of the protocol. Commander Tucker explained everything. Ward's expression softened slightly. I'm not angry with you. I'm frustrated with a system that puts warriors in positions where they have to hide their service to find peace. But that's a policy issue, not a personal one. Thank you, ma'am. However, we now have a situation. 4 officers facing serious charges, a dining facility staff traumatized by what they witnessed, a base full of personnel who know that someone extraordinary was living among them unrecognized. Ward tapped her desk. How do you want to handle this going forward? Hazel hadn't expected the question. Ma'am, you have options. You could return to active duty, transfer to another base, leave military service entirely, or... Ward paused. You could stay, on your terms. Stay here, in the dining facility? If that's what you want, but I'd like to make another offer. Ward pulled out a file. We have a SEER school instructor position, part-time, teaching mental resilience, trauma management, transition strategies. Not combat tactics, not operational skills, the human side of warfare that most training ignores. Hazel stared at the file. I'm not qualified to teach that. You're the most qualified person I know. You've lived it. You've survived it. You're actively working through it. Ward pushed the file across the desk. Think about it. No pressure. But we need people who can help others navigate what you're navigating. Can I keep working the dining facility? Ward smiled. If you want to serve meals part-time while teaching warriors how to survive their own minds, I won't stop you. Might be the strangest duty assignment I've ever approved, but I've learned that healing takes unusual forms. Hazel picked up the file. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Ward stood, extended her hand. For what it's worth, Lieutenant Commander, I'm honored to have you on my base. However you choose to serve. They shook hands. And for the first time since the reveal, Hazel felt something like hope. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Word had spread through the entire base. The story grew with each retelling. The dining facility worker who was secretly a SEAL, the officers who had harassed a war hero, the tattoo that proved everything. Hazel stayed in her apartment, avoiding the attention, the questions, the inevitable stares. But Sunday evening, her phone rang. Her brother, Caleb. You made the news, little sister. What? Not the civilian news, military channels, everyone's talking about it. DevGru operator hiding in plain sight. 4 officers facing court-martial. His voice carried a mix of pride and concern. "You okay?" "I don't know yet." "Want me to come out there?" "No, I need to handle this myself." She paused. "But thank you for asking. That's what big brothers do, even when little sisters can kick their tails in hand-to-hand combat." His attempt at humor fell flat. "Seriously though, Hazel, this might be good. You can't heal in hiding. Maybe being seen is the first step to being whole." After they hung up, Hazel stood at her window, looking out at the base lights. Caleb was right. She'd been hiding. Not just from others, but from herself. From the truth of what she'd done, what she'd lost, what she'd survived. Maybe it was time to stop running. Monday morning, she returned to the dining facility, arrived at 05:30 as usual, changed into her uniform, now with the shoulder carefully stitched, tied her apron, took her position at the serving line. The breakfast crowd arrived, and everything was different. People approached the serving line with visible respect. "Good morning, ma'am." "Thank you, ma'am." Eyes that met hers with understanding rather than dismissal. The elderly Korea War veteran came through, placed a challenge coin on the counter. "This is from Incheon Landing, 73 years old. I want you to have it." His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Service recognizes service." Hazel picked up the coin, the metal warm from his pocket. "Sir, I can't accept this." "You already did. The moment you earned that trident." He saluted, slow and precise. "Welcome home, warrior, however long it took." She returned the salute, the coin clutched in her hand, throat too tight to speak. Mason approached during a lull. "The dining facility feels different now, like everyone suddenly understands what we've been taking for granted." "Nothing's changed. I'm the same person I was last week." "No, you're not. Last week you were hidden. This week you're visible, and that changes everything." He hesitated. "I put in paperwork for SEAL training. Probably won't get accepted, but you'll never know unless you try." Hazel studied his young face. "Remember what I said about the price?" "I remember. I'm willing to pay it. We'll see if you still feel that way after Hell Week." She smiled slightly. "But I think you've got the mindset. Just don't let the physical requirements intimidate you. The mind quits before the body." His eyes lit up. "That's actually helpful." "Thank you, ma'am." After breakfast, Oswald pulled her aside. "You're handling this well. I don't have much choice." "There's always a choice. You chose to come back, to face it." He glanced around the dining facility. "People are different now, more respectful, more aware. They shouldn't need to know my background to treat me with respect. That's the problem with all of this." Hazel's voice carried frustration. "Dahlia deserved the same respect I'm getting now. Mason deserved it. Every civilian worker deserves it, but it took a tattoo and rank to make people see. You're right, and that's exactly why we need you teaching, because the next generation needs to learn that respect isn't about rank. It's about recognizing the human in everyone." Oswald's expression was serious. "Are you going to take Colonel Ward's offer?" "I don't know. Teaching means being visible, being vulnerable, admitting I don't have all the answers. That's exactly what makes you qualified. The instructors who think they have all the answers are the dangerous ones." He squeezed her shoulder. "Think about it. But whatever you decide, you've got support here." Tuesday brought the Article 15 hearing. Major Erica Lawson, JAG officer, presided. Hazel gave testimony. Calm, professional, devastating in its precision, every incident documented, every witness confirmed, every charge substantiated beyond any possible doubt. Jasper sat with his attorney, face pale, knowing his military career was over. Dishonorable discharge, loss of all benefits, permanent mark on his record. His attempt to grab Hazel's arm, captured on Bellatrix's phone video before she dropped it, played in the hearing room, the fabric tearing, the tattoo revealed, the absolute proof of assault on a superior officer. Bellatrix received career-ending reprimands. Her rumors about Hazel's supposed dishonorable discharge proved to be deliberate slander. Her social media posts mocking civilian workers used as evidence of conduct unbecoming. She'd never advance in rank, would likely separate from the military within a year. Gaston's weapons challenge, recorded by multiple witnesses, demonstrated abusive position and improper use of military equipment to harass a civilian employee. Career over. Future security clearances denied. Options narrowing to nothing. Hugo's failure to intervene, his dismissal of complaints, his complicity in the harassment, all documented. Forced retirement, pension reduced, legacy tarnished. The hearing took 4 hours. By the end, Hazel felt exhausted, not from the testimony, but from reliving every moment, every insult, every dismissal, every time she'd had to swallow her anger and pretend to be less than she was. Tucker found her afterward in the hallway. "How are you holding up?" "I've been through worse." "That's not an answer." She leaned against the wall. "I feel guilty, like I destroyed their careers by existing. They destroyed their own careers by choosing to be cruel to someone they perceived as powerless. This is consequences, not vengeance." He studied her face. "You know that intellectually, but the heart takes longer to catch up." "How long?" "Depends. For me, about 5 years after I left active combat. But everyone's different." He handed her a folder. "Dr. Chase wants to see you. Says your forced exposure qualifies as a significant therapy event." It certainly was significant. The question is whether it was traumatic or therapeutic. Only you can answer that. Hazel took the folder. "I'll call him." Wednesday morning brought change. Corporal Anderson Wright approached her at the serving line. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. When Lieutenant Reed challenged you about weapons knowledge, I stood by and watched. I should have intervened." "You couldn't have known. That's not the point. I knew the harassment was wrong. I knew he was out of line. I stayed silent because it was easier than standing up." His face showed genuine remorse. "I'm sorry, and I'm going to do better." Throughout the day, others approached. Some apologizing for silence, some thanking her for service, some simply acknowledging her with new respect. The dining facility felt different, more aware, more human. Dahlia pulled her aside during lunch prep. "I've been thinking about what you said, that your problems aren't more important than mine." She wiped her hands on her apron. "But I want you to know you can talk to me about the hard stuff, about Syria, about why you're really here. Dahlia, I know you don't want pity. I'm not offering pity. I'm offering friendship, real friendship, where you don't have to be strong all the time, where you can just be a person who's struggling." Her eyes were fierce. "You listen to me. Let me return the favor." Hazel felt something crack in her chest. The armor she'd built, the walls she'd maintained. "I lost my entire team. 8 people, the best operators I've ever known. We walked into an ambush in Syria, and only I walked out." Dahlia pulled her into a hug. "I'm so sorry. I can't stop wondering why. Why them and not me? Why I survived when they were better, smarter, more deserving." The words came faster now, spilling out. "I came here because I couldn't face another day pretending to be a warrior when I felt like a failure. But serving food, being nobody, it let me remember I was human before I was a weapon." "You're not a weapon. You're a person who did extraordinary things. There's a difference." Dahlia held her tighter. "And your team, they'd want you to heal, to live, to find peace. That's not betraying their memory. That's honoring it." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, while prep work continued around them. And Hazel cried for the first time since Syria. Real tears, ugly shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded and desperate for release. When she finally pulled away, Dahlia handed her a dish towel. "Feel better?" "Actually, yes." Hazel wiped her face. "Thank you. That's what friends do." Dahlia smiled. "Now come on. Lunch rush starts in 10 minutes, and I need your help with the mashed potatoes." The normalcy of it, the simple task, the everyday routine, felt like medicine. Thursday brought Colonel Ward back into the picture. She visited the dining facility during lunch, spoke with staff, observed operations. Then she approached Hazel's station. "I've been impressed by what I've seen this week, the way you've handled the attention, the way you've continued working despite everything." Ward accepted a plate of food. "Have you thought about my offer?" "I have, ma'am." "And?" "I'd like to try the SEER instructor position, part-time, while continuing here." Hazel met her eyes. "But I have conditions." "I'm listening." "I don't teach combat. I don't teach operational tactics. I teach survival, mental, emotional, psychological. I teach people how to come home from war while still being human. And I do it my way, without a manual or curriculum that pretends trauma follows a schedule." Ward smiled. "Those are exactly the conditions I was hoping you'd set." "When can you start?" "Next Monday?" "Done. I'll have the paperwork ready." Ward picked up her tray. "You're going to help a lot of people, Lieutenant Commander. More than you know." After she left, Mason approached with barely contained excitement. I overheard. You're teaching at SEER school? Apparently. That's amazing. When I go through training, will you? No, you won't have me as an instructor. Would be a conflict of interest since I know you. Hazel smiled at his disappointment. But the people who do teach you will have the same goal, getting you through alive and intact. Fair enough. He hesitated. Can I ask what happened in Syria? No. Okay. He didn't push, just nodded and returned to work. That evening, Tucker called. Hearing you took Ward's offer. Word travels fast. Small community. Everyone knows everyone's business. He paused. I'm proud of you, Ghost. This is the right move. Don't call me that anymore. Ghost is... That person is gone. No, that person evolved. Ghost became, Hazel became someone who's both warrior and healer. That's rare. That's valuable. His voice softened. You're doing what I couldn't. You're finding the balance while you're still young enough to build a real life. Don't waste it. After the call, Hazel sat in her apartment, thinking about balance. About being Ghost and Hazel simultaneously. About serving meals and teaching survival. About hiding and being seen. Maybe Tucker was right. Maybe she didn't have to choose. Maybe she could be both. If this story moved you, there's a second part coming that explores what happens after the truth comes out. Hit subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss it. These stories of hidden service members rebuilding their lives need to be told. Thank you for watching. Friday marked 1 week since the revelation. The base had settled into a new normal. Hazel still served food, but now people knew who they were thanking. The respect felt different, earned not through exposure but through acknowledgement. Private Mason graduated from basic training officially. He sought Hazel out after the ceremony, standing taller in his dress uniform. I ship out to SEAL prep course in 3 weeks. Any last advice? Remember why you're doing this. When your body wants to quit, when your mind says it's impossible, when every instinct screams to give up, remember your why. Make it something bigger than yourself, something worth the price. She held his gaze. And when you make it through, when you earn your trident, remember that the real challenge starts after training. The challenge of staying human while doing inhuman things. I will, ma'am. Thank you for everything. After he left, Oswald approached. You're good at that, at mentoring. I'm not sure I'm qualified to mentor anyone. The fact that you question your qualifications is exactly why you're perfect for it. Arrogance gets people killed. Humility keeps them alive. He handed her a newspaper, the base newsletter, made the front page. The headline read, Hidden Hero, SEAL Operator's Journey to Healing. The article detailed her service, her transition, her harassment, her revelation. But it also talked about civilian worker respect, about assumptions, about the danger of judging people by appearance alone. They interviewed me, Oswald said. Told them you were the best worker I'd ever supervised, that your background was impressive, but your character was what mattered, that every person in every job deserves dignity, regardless of their past. Hazel read the article, something warm spreading through her chest. Thank you for saying that. I only spoke the truth, he paused. You've changed this place. People treat each other differently now, more kindly, more carefully. Your presence, your example, it matters. 6 months later, Hazel stood in front of 12 female recruits in the SEER school classroom, her first official teaching session. She wore civilian clothes, but carried herself with unmistakable authority. Strength isn't about muscle, she began. It's about choosing peace when you could choose violence. It's about serving with dignity, regardless of recognition. It's about surviving your own mind when your environment tries to break you. The recruits listened, rapt. You're here because you want to serve, because you believe in something bigger than yourselves. That's admirable. But let me tell you what nobody else will. The hardest battles won't be against enemies. They'll be against your own doubts, your own trauma, your own struggle to remain human in inhuman circumstances. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I earned my trident. I completed 12 classified missions. I did things I can never discuss with people who will never have clearance to know. And I lost everything that mattered in one night in Syria. Her voice remained steady. The question isn't whether you can survive training. The question is whether you can survive success, whether you can come home from war and still recognize yourself in the mirror. Sergeant Clover Manning sat in the back, observing. After class, she approached Hazel. That was powerful. different from any instruction I've heard, because I'm not teaching tactics. I'm teaching truth. Hazel gathered her materials. How's the MP work? Good. Better since I started seeing things differently. Since you helped me understand that strength comes in many forms. Clover hesitated. I withdrew my special warfare application. Why? Because I realized I can serve in other ways that fit me better. I don't need a trident to make a difference. Your example taught me that. Hazel smiled. That might be the most intelligent decision anyone's made. Life found a rhythm. Mornings in the dining facility, afternoons teaching Siri classes, evenings in therapy with Dr. Albert Chase, working through layers of trauma and guilt and survivor's burden. Weekends with Dahlia and her family, remembering what normal civilian life looked like. Jasper left the military with a dishonorable discharge. Last anyone heard, he was working construction in Nevada, too ashamed to return to his hometown. Bellatrix transitioned out of the military, finding work in veteran advocacy. She sent Hazel a letter 6 months later, apologizing sincerely, trying to make amends by helping other veterans navigate the transition she'd made so difficult. Gaston received administrative separation. He took a job as a police firearms instructor. His military career over, his future narrowed by consequences he'd earned. Hugo retired quietly, his pension reduced, his legacy tarnished. He became a cautionary tale about leadership failure, about the importance of intervening when subordinates cross lines. Transitioning from military to civilian life comes with unique legal and educational challenges. Specialized legal services for veterans handle everything from upgrading discharge status to accessing VA benefits you've earned. Online education programs designed for military schedules let you build new skills at your own pace, with credits for your service experience. Whether you need legal advocacy for service-connected claims or want to pursue higher education using your military benefits, there are professionals who understand your specific situation. Don't navigate these complex systems alone. Expert guidance can make the difference between getting what you've earned and leaving benefits on the table. 1 year after the revelation, Colonel Ward called Hazel to her office. I have news. Your SEER program has the highest student satisfaction ratings in the entire Navy. Retention through training is up 15%. Post-deployment mental health check-ins show better outcomes for people who went through your instruction. That's good to hear, ma'am. It's more than good. It's revolutionary. SEAL Command wants to expand the program. Offer it to all special operations candidates, not just SARE students. Ward leaned forward. They're offering you a full-time position, GS-13 civilian rating, your own curriculum, your own team. Hazel sat back, stunned. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. You don't have to decide today, Ward smiled. But you've proven something important, that healing and serving aren't opposites, that warriors can become teachers, that the strongest thing a person can do is admit vulnerability and help others through it. That evening, Hazel walked the beach near Camp Pendleton. The Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon, waves rolling in with hypnotic rhythm. She thought about the past year, about revelation and consequence and growth, about learning to be whole instead of hidden. Her phone buzzed. Commander Tucker. Ghost, got something you need to see. What is it? Intelligence brief, classified, can't discuss over phone. Can you come to DevGru headquarters tomorrow? Her heart rate spiked. Sir, I'm not active duty. Doesn't matter. This concerns you directly. 0900 my office. Bring your clearances. He hung up before she could ask questions. The next morning, Hazel drove to the headquarters building, anxiety coiling in her stomach. Tucker met her at security, escorted her through layers of checkpoints into a SCIF, sensitive compartmented information facility. Inside, he handed her a file. Sit down for this. She sat. Opened the file. Mission report, Syria. Date, August 12, 2023. Location, classified. Team, Ghost Unit 7. Status, KIA presumed. But attached was an addendum. Recent intelligence. Signals intercept. Voice recording recovered from compromised communications. Tucker pressed play. Static, breathing. Then a female voice, hoarse, exhausted, speaking quickly. Ghost. This is Delta 3. They... Cut off. Metal door slamming. Footsteps. Shouting in Arabic. Hazel's hands shook. That's Lieutenant Willow Hayes, my second in command. She was listed KIA. Keep reading. She flipped pages. Analysis. Linguistic patterns. Background noise evaluation. Conclusion: voice recording authentic. Background consistent with detention facility. Recording captured 3 weeks ago, 18 months after the Syria ambush. 18 months after Hazel watched her entire team die, or thought she watched them die. She's alive. Hazel's voice came out strangled. Willow is alive. We think so, and if she's alive, others might be too. Tucker's expression was grave. But they're in deep, hostage situation, maybe black site prison, maybe intelligence leverage. We don't know yet. We have to get her out. We're working on it. But, Ghost, he paused, this isn't your mission anymore. You're not active duty. You're not cleared for operational planning. Then clear me. She stood, file clutched in her hands. That's my team, my people, my responsibility. It was your team. 18 months ago, you've built a new life. You're helping people. You're healing. His voice was gentle but firm. Going back to operational status, diving back into that world, it could destroy everything you've accomplished. I don't care. If Willow is alive, if any of them are alive, I have to try. I can't just teach classes and serve food while they're rotting in some prison. Her voice broke. I left them there. I survived and they didn't. If there's a chance to fix that, I have to take it. Tucker studied her face, saw the determination, the guilt, the warrior rising through the teacher's careful calm. Let me talk to command, see what's possible, but I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll think about the cost, really think about it. You've worked so hard to come back from the edge. Going operational again might push you right back over. He held her gaze. Some missions, the price is too high, even for the people we love. Hazel nodded slowly, but they both knew she'd already made her decision. That evening, she sat in her apartment, staring at her phone, the encrypted message app, the one she'd kept despite telling herself she was done with that life. She opened it, typed a message to Tucker. I need everything you have on the Syria recovery operation. I need access to intelligence. I need to know what we're dealing with. If Willow's alive, I'm going after her, with official support or without it. She hit send before she could second guess. Minutes later, Tucker's response. Meeting tomorrow, 0700. Bring your gear. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Hazel closed her eyes, felt the weight of the decision settling into her bones. She'd found peace, built a new life, learned to be human again. But some bonds were stronger than peace. Some debts couldn't be paid through teaching. Some missions never ended. She stood, walked to her closet, pulled out the duffel bag she hadn't touched in 18 months. The one containing tactical gear, weapons components, equipment she'd promised herself she'd never need again. Some warriors retired. Some warriors healed. Some warriors taught the next generation. But some warriors, when called, answered, no matter the cost, no matter the consequence, no matter how much peace they'd sacrifice to get it. Hazel Grant had been all those things. Teacher, healer, survivor. But tonight, staring at the phone message that changed everything, she became what she'd always been beneath the careful disguise. Ghost. And Ghost had unfinished business. The screen faded to black. Sound only. A car engine starting. Hazel's voice, quiet but certain. Hold on, Delta. I'm coming. Then silence. The kind of silence that promised violence, that promised action, that promised some missions never ended. Some bonds were stronger than death itself.